Welcome back to the second part of our wide track upgrade for the Dxr2 dozer. We're going to start by accessing our gears by pulling the gear cover off here for this out drive. Get that off, and then we'll work on the retaining ring. Now, most of the major components have already been done on the previous video. So basically all we're doing is getting the extension ring put on this side on the gear drive. I get access to that, we pull that off, and I got the bearing in with the gear on this one. And then all we got to do is pull all those screws off around the perimeter of the drive motor there to loose the drive motor from the body. Now that the drive's loose, we'll pull this off. Now, the last video I showed how we could replace the motor, desoldering and re-soldering the wires onto the motor. With this one, we're going to be doing a little bit different step, which is even easier, as you'll see. And the one thing you want to be careful with here is once you pull that off, you got the little gears in there that you don't want to lose. So make sure you get those put back in place on that planetary gear system. And then there's a gear on the motor, and there's also a sleeve behind the pinion gear on the motor that if you drop the pinion gear out, you want to make sure that that sleeve gets back in there as well. So now all we got to do is pull the motor ring off. And to do that, all we got to do is take two screws out on the front side. And that's basically our motor mount. And this is so super simple. Get those off, boom, there we now have full access to the front side of the motor. So we'll grab our extension ring right there and just slide it on. Then we will put back on our motor mount. Get those two screws put back in place. And then it's a matter of making sure all three of those components are on there before we put our screws in. So that would be the retaining ring, the motor mount, and then the gear mount. Now this part here I found a little bit more difficult, getting the gears lined up. They like to push out the other side of the gear drive system. So you just want to make sure all the gears are there, and you just got to work it, wiggle it to get those gears set onto the pinion. So you can mount that up without pushing the other gears out on the other side of the gear drive. So now we got that all mounted up, we go ahead and lube up our gear drive. Get that out drive bearing on there and the out drive itself. And one thing, I want to make sure that rubber seal, there's a rubber O-ring on the back side there. I like to bring that up and over the bearing and then slide the out drive on and push it all the way, and it seats a little bit better and a little bit easier that way. This is where you'll notice the difference of where that O-ring's placed, is when you go to put this retaining ring back on. If you place it on the bearing first and push the motor back, it's easier to get this ring on. There's less gap that you have to close to pinch against that ring. And now we'll get this cap put on here for the out drive, and then we're almost done. We'll be ready to throw the other track on. So pretty exciting. Same thing with this. It takes a little bit of wiggling and jiggling to get all four of those gears on there to line up. And once it does, it just slides right in. And get all these screws put in. And of course, I've got one, notice is missing, and that's due to one of them having sheared off, but it's been okay without it. So here we are now, ready to put the tracks on. This gets a little bit tricky. The tracks I did some research on for dozers, and everything I found showed the cleat facing the front of the tractor, the paddle facing the rear. So that's how I put these tracks on. Cleat forward, paddle to the rear. And these things are a little bit tricky to put on. The hardest part is coming up, and I'll show you a little trick I did for these. And here on this one, I did do the 41 sections of track. So you'll see the gap is closed in tight on that tensioner at the front of the track drive system. I did this because I wanted to get it up and running right away. I did contact my parts supplier, and it was just an oversight that I didn't get my extra track sections. So they got those sent out, and actually at the time I'm editing this video, I did receive them. It only took 2 weeks to get those in, and I'll show me changing those out from the 41 to the 42 links, and I like it a lot better. But it was real good on the customer service and real quick getting my parts out to me, so I really appreciate that. Alright, so tracks laid in there. I like to go ahead and get these ball cap put on, get the blade fixed in place. It makes it a little bit easier to maneuver this machine around and to get the tracks pinched together so that I can get the pin in the tracks. I get that all tightened up, and now if you're doing the tracks, I found working it on the back side seemed to work out a little bit easier. I pull as much tension as I can. I've tried just putting pressure all the way from the front of the track, clear it by the blade, to the back, but this puts a little bit of slack in the top of the track, and so I can't get it to pull all the way together. So what I did was I put my bar clamp underneath it and used the weight of the tractor and just grabbed one of the cleats on the track and then brought it up and grabbed another cleat, and then I was able to pinch that together, and just working that little section, pinching it together, seemed to work the best and easiest. This was one of several takes. I tried several different methods, different ways to try to get this together, and especially with having to pinch it so tight together with those 41 links, this was the easiest way I found to be able to get those together. And as you can see, the pin, it just kind of went right in. And able to release it, then I spin the tractor a little bit so I can access, and I put the C-clips on the inside of the pin on the tracks. It's not too bad to access this way either, even getting the C-clips off, and looks wise it looks really good, and it just worked out the best this way. And as you can see, I'd pointed out just a few seconds ago that there's no space. If you look at that right hand track there and look at the tension portion of the wheel, the tension wheel, there's no space left to compress. It's pretty much tight against the mechanics, and I don't like that. The track is really super tight. There's a lot of tension. There's no slop, but That means there's also no give for if you get a rock or anything in there. And there it is. That is the wide track kit fully installed, and she is ready to test run. So I'm super excited. The next video coming up will show it in action with the tracks in this configuration.